Hello, all my mathletes. Today we are going to be doing notes on multiplying and dividing scientific notation. So that is going to be the title of our notes today. We do have a foldable, so if you have your packet, you're going to want to make sure you have that. Um, and what we're going to do is we're going to use those property of exponents to help us multiply and divide scientific notation. So here's the title of the notes today. If you have not already made your foldable for today, you're going to want to do that. Your foldable is this sheet with hearts. You're going to cut out each heart individually. You're going to fold them in half with the writing on the outside. And then you're going to glue them together side by side so that it looks like this. Okay, so here's one heart, right? And then here's the other heart, and they can open like this. So that's what you're going to want to do to make the foldable. If you have not done that yet, then you're going to want to go ahead and pause the video and do that. And then you're just going to glue it in, kind of in this general area. Okay. So again, if you haven't made that foldable, please go pause the video, do that, because now we're going to look at filling out the foldable. Okay. So here's, let's say, the inside of multiplying and dividing. Oops, wrong way. So this is what we're looking at, the inside of multiplying, not multiplying and dividing, just multiplying. So the directions on how do I multiply scientific notation? Okay, so the first step, and you're going to want to probably, excuse me, write a little bit on the smaller side. Okay, your first step is that you want to multiply the decimal numbers. Didn't fit it. Oh well. Okay, so you're going to want to multiply the decimal numbers. So I'm going to kind of show you, well, let's go through the steps and then we'll look at an example, okay? The second step is because we're multiplying scientific notation, when I multiply exponents, something with exponents, I add the exponents. We have to think back to that rule of exponents. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the exponents of the powers of 10. Right? So I have like 3 times 10 to the 6th and 2.4 times 10 to the 5th. Well, then I add that 6 and that 5 together because those are the exponents. Okay. So then we write the new power of 10 with the decimal that you found in part 1. If it is a decimal, it can be a whole number too. In scientific notation. Right? So I'm going to write the decimal number. You don't have to write this part, but the decimal number, right? And then times 10 to the 11th or whatever it is. So I take the decimal from part 1 and then the power from part 2. What happened to my pen? Holy moly, sorry. The power from part 2. And then I add them together. I don't know what just happened. I think I just froze or something. That was weird. Okay. Then the last step. because this happens frequently. If the decimal is greater than 10, right? So if this number right here is greater than 10, remember that this number is never allowed to be greater than 10. So if it's greater than 10, you're going to move the decimal place. Or the decimal point, right, to the left so that it's less than 10 but still greater than 1. And then because you've moved it to the left, you'll have to increase the exponent. The exponent by the number of decimal places moved. So if you have to move that decimal point 3 spots to the left, then you'll have to add 3 to the exponent. If you just move the decimal point 1 spot to the left, you just add 1 to the exponent. And this step 4, this is true whether it's multiplying or dividing, okay, scientific notation. This is always the case. So if I had like 13.6 times 10 to the 4th, for example, can't have a number bigger than 1, so I have to go, or bigger than 10, excuse me, so I have to move it 1 decimal place to the left, and then that exponent needs to increase by 1, and that's it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an example here. Just like on your paper, if I go here, right? So if this is like the bottom of the heart, right there, we're just going to do it right here, okay? So we're going to do a quick example. So 4.4 times 10 to the 6th times 3.9 times 10 to the 4th. That's a 6, sorry. Okay. So step 1 says that I need to multiply these two numbers together. Okay, so that's step 1, is I need to multiply those two numbers together. That gets me 17.16. Okay, step 2 says I need to add my exponents together. And then, which gives me 10, right? And then step 3 says to write it all together. So times 10 to the 10th. Because this number is bigger than 1, step 4 tells me I have to move my decimal place over 1. So we move 1 place. Therefore, we have to add 1 to the exponent. So it becomes 1.716 times 10 to the 11th. And that is my final answer. Okay, so not too bad. And obviously you can use a calculator here to multiply 4.4 times 3.9. I'm not expecting you to do that in your head, okay? So not too bad. Just multiply the decimals, then add the exponents, and then if you have to move your decimal point either left or right, then you will adjust your exponent accordingly. Okay. So the next one then that we're going to do is we're going to do, oops, sorry, wrong way. we're going to do dividing. Okay, so we're going to write on the inside of the dividing heart now. Dividing is pretty much identical. We're going to use the same heart. Okay, so hopefully nothing too crazy here. I'm going to change up my color since it's a different foldable. Okay, so step 1 is to divide the decimal numbers. Right? We always do top divided by bottom or first divided by last, something like that, depending on how it's written. So, numbers. There we go. So just like we multiply the decimal numbers for multiplying, for dividing, we divide the decimal numbers. Step 2 here is, so remember back to our exponent properties, that when I divide exponents, I subtract, or when I divide powers, I subtract the exponents, right? So same thing here, I'm going to subtract the exponents of the power of 10. Whatever's on that power of 10, right? So how we do this, we always do either the first exponent minus the second exponent, or the top minus the bottom, just depending on how it's written, right? So remember that I can write dividing as like I don't want to use E. I don't know why I just used E. So like x to the 12th over x to the fourth. Or I can write it as x to the 12th divided by x to the 4th. So that's what I mean by first minus the second. So that would be 12 minus 4. Or top minus bottom, 12 minus 4. So it just depends on how it's written. Okay, and again, you don't have to write that down. Okay, and then step 3 is the same, right? So we're going to write the new power of 10 with the decimal in scientific notation. Ooh, it's hard to fit it. You got to write real small. Okay. So step 3 is the same as it is with multiplying. And then step 4 is similar to step 4 in multiplying. Just how step 4 on multiplying applies to multiplying and dividing, this one also applies to multiplying or dividing, depending on what you get. Okay, so if the resulting decimal is less than 1, remember that my decimal cannot be less than 1. So if it is less than 1, I have to move the decimal. Oh, I'm not going to be able to fit it. Okay. Move the decimal point to the right. Okay, so instead of to the left, now we're moving it to the right. And you would decrease, because you're moving it to the right, you would decrease the exponent by the number of decimal places moved. Ooh, I can fit it. Places moved. right? So again, if I get my answers like 0.0127 times 10 to the third, I can't have that because it's less than 1. I would have to move it 2 places here to be 1.27 because that is greater than or equal to 1 and less than 10. And because I moved it 2 decimal places, I would have to subtract this by 2, which gives me 1. Okay, so let's do an example of this. We're going to do our example down below the heart. So if we go back here, here's the heart. So let's do the example over here on the dividing side. Okay, so let's do our example is 5.76 times 10 to the ninth divided by 3.2 times 10 to the third. Now, I want you to note that this can also be written as 5.76 times 10 to the ninth over divided by 3.2 times 10 to the third. So I just want to note that these two things are exactly the same, okay? So first, step 1 here says to divide. So I need to divide 5.76 by 3.2. If I do that, I get 1.8. Then it says, step 2 says to subtract, right? I want to subtract the first exponent minus the second exponent. That gets me times 10. 9 minus 3 is 6. Step 3 says to put it together into scientific notation, which I just did. And 1.8 is greater than or equal to 1, and it's less than 10. So I actually don't have to move my decimal place here, which is awesome. Okay. So that is what we're doing there. Your practice for today, or the next thing that you're going to need is this sheet, and it has 2 of them on the same sheet. You only need 1. So when you tear this out and glue this into your notebook, you only have to worry about gluing in one of these, okay? Because they're exactly the same on both sides. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and do that because we're going to go over this right now. Okay, so here we have, let's get rid of that. Here we have that sheet that I just showed you, right? And again, you only have to do half of it. Notice it's the same on both sides, okay? So we're going to do a couple practice problems here. This one is multiplying. So I'm multiplying 1.7 times 3.2, which gets me 5.44 times 10. And then I need to add my exponents, right? So negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8. And that's my answer because 5 is greater than 5.44, excuse me, is greater than or equal to 1, and it's less than 10. For the next one, it's division. So I just have to make sure I'm paying attention, right? So 9.6 divided by 6.4 is 1.5 times 10. And then I subtract these two, first minus the second. So 4 minus 2 is 2. And that is my answer. So hopefully that makes sense. I want you guys to try these other 4. So go ahead, pause the video, try these, and then when you're ready to go over them, hit play and we'll go over it. Okay, so hopefully you tried them. Here's the answers. The only one I really want to go over here is number 6. 8.08 divided by 4 is 2.02. But then here, right here, when we're subtracting, I want to show you what happened. So I have negative 10, and then I subtract negative 3. So I actually get a double negative here, which turns it to positive, and that's how I got negative 7 as the exponent on the 10. Um, so you just want to make sure that you are really, really careful here when you're subtracting, because if you subtract a negative, you're going to get that double negative, which ends up giving you a positive. Um, okay, so you guys, that's it for notes today, you guys. Hopefully this is making sense. Obviously, you need to reach out if it's not. You do have some practice on this, so just make sure to check the planner to see what your practice is. The practice should, look like this, multiplying, dividing. So hopefully you have that. If you need anything, reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you soon.